So in a recent general manager survey, NBA GMs voted on who they believe to be the best center in the NBA. Their top two picks were Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid, which I would agree with. But an interesting name not mentioned is Rudy Gobert of the Jazz. And I think Gobert's situation and how good you think he is one of the more interesting ones in the league. Because there are some people who think Gobert is like super overrated. And then there are some like me who think he's insanely underrated. And I think a lot of it revolves around how much you value defense, but also how much you value offense, and at what point is a lack of an all-around game acceptable because you're just so good at one specific thing or a couple of things, right? Also, there's the conversation of talent, usually on offense, versus your impact on wins and losses, which is a lot of the time why some people would say like DeMarcus Cousins is better than Rudy Gobert, which I would disagree with. It's an interesting thing. So, of course, Gobert is an elite rim protector, great pick and roll defender, and great post defender and all that stuff, right? However, we have seen him also exploited against the best teams in the league. Chris Paul's mid-range jumper killed him in that round 2 series, right? Utah, this great defensive team all year, insanely good defensively down the stretch once Gobert was healthy, and it was like pretty bad against Houston, right? And given that we are in the NBA now with a million perimeter players and a whole lot of pick and rolls and all that, yeah, it's a thing where there's a cap on how valuable Gobert really is, right? Like if he's going to be this great defensive player against 98% of the league, but it's not going to work against the elite of the elite, then yeah, I can understand why you would knock him down a little bit, especially when you combine that with the fact of like, he can't shoot, he can't dribble, he can post up a little bit, but don't throw him the ball too often. And his main offensive value is offensive rebounds and rolling to the basket and catching dump-off passes, right? So then it basically becomes, well, if you're not as good defensively against the best teams in the league and you already don't provide the offense that guys like Anthony Davis, Embiid, Towns, Cousins, Jokic, Horford, with spacing and shooting and ball handling, if you can't do those things and you're going to be diminished on defense, then can you really be the, like, I don't know, 12th best player in the league or something like that? Can you really be the 3rd best center or something? I mean, you know, it's an interesting conversation because you look at it like this, right? You look at Boogie. We'll go back to him. Boogie's defense is nowhere near Gobert's, right? However, if we are operating under the assumption that Gobert's value is already dropped against the best teams, then at that point, he and Cousins are kind of they're not on the same wavelength defensively. Like, Gobert is still better, but the gap is not as drastic, right? And then you say, well, if Cousins was your center against Houston, sure, he might get cooked on defense, but he's going to do some work on the other end. Like, he might still put up 20-something points and multiple double-digit rebounds and a solid 4 or 5 assists a game and give you that spacing and pull Capella out of the paint, and he might even force Houston to switch sometimes, and he could post up on that. And then it's like, I mean, it's a compelling case for that kind of a thing, right? And then you take someone like Joel Embiid, right, who is not at Cousins' level on offense, but he's not like too far away, and he's definitely closer than Gobert is. And then you still give him like enough defensive props to where, similar to Gobert, he might not be as good against a team like the Warriors, but he's not a disaster either. And then it's like, well, Embiid's definitely better because he's going to give you about the same defense, but then he's still going to give you some offense against those best teams. So, yeah, even though I may be a Rudy Gobert stan who had to remind people on Twitter, or maybe I was just tweeting into the ether, I don't know, but I felt compelled to say every now and then, look guys, I know Donovan Mitchell's great and he's leading this team's offense, but their wins and losses basically reflect when Gobert is in or not in the game. And even with that, I still have to admit, yeah, at a certain point, the dude's value does kind of drop off. I mean, hell, even against Al Horford, who I love, but I also recognize is not really in the conversation for like the 2 or maybe like 2 to 5 best centers in the league or something. The Celtics don't usually have like huge trouble dealing with Gobert because Horford will just knock down threes all day. Or even if he's not going to make a million threes, you're going to have to respect him because of his ball handling, right? So then that pulls Gobert out just a little bit more than he would like, and then from there, well, it opens up a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think at a certain point when you're comparing centers who have distinct strengths and weaknesses, there's never going to be a stone cold answer outside of Anthony Davis as the best center. Now, with all that said, do I think Gobert deserved a mention? Yeah, of course. I mean, Andre Drummond's in there for God's sakes, and like Drummond, I recognize that he improved on his free throws, he stopped posting up, and at least before Blake was there, he had more value on offense because he was making plays for teammates, but like really? Andre Drummond? The rebounding is at an all-time level with him, I get it, but his defensive impact has never been good enough for him to really be in the top of that conversation to me, and he just figured out offense a little bit more this season, so it's like, I think you guys are falling in love with box score numbers a little too much on that one. NBA GMs, that is. So anyway, what you can get out of this video is I'm a Rudy Gobert stan that is trying to figure things out. Also, I hate DeMarcus Cousins because someone's going to think that anyway, whenever I don't say that he's the best center in the league overwhelmingly, which always baffles me. And yeah, that's about it. Gobert is really good. I can understand why some people would not love his game as much as I do, and I tried my hardest to put myself in their head and in the NBA GM's heads for this particular survey, and even then I'm still like, what, really? Not on the list at all? Okay, guys.